we would want to take this opportunity to thank you for checking in to listen, and let you know that we appreciate each and every one of you. What region of the globe are you now seeing from? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Now, let's get started with today's. Throughout the time that Matthew Smith was cleaning up concrete debris, the sun was shining through the kitchen window in late September, casting long shadows. 25 years of construction labor had left his hands calloused and powerful, and each scar was a tribute to the fact that he had worked in the construction industry. At 4:15 p.m., he took a quick check at the clock and saw that all of the tasks had been finished. It's Aiden was going to be at soccer practice until 6 o'clock, which would give him time to evaluate the Thompson project estimates. A phone alert rang. Aiden's iPhone, which he had forgotten in his pocket, was sitting insistently on the granite countertop, its screen repeatedly lighting up with alerts. Despite the fact that Allan could have overlooked it due to his normal youthful desire to rehearse, the preview snippets caught my attention when I made his entry. Tighten your chest, Dad. Even though Sebastian has already indicated that we could, Mom is thinking that Allan's hands, which were firm enough to level a beam or lay immaculate tilework, shook as he picked up the bits. Fragments were sufficient. When Aiden picked up the phone, the text that he had sent to Kevin, his closest buddy, continued to slide upward in an infinite fashion, each one a new blow. Sebastian had received a text message from Aiden that morning, but he had no information regarding his mother's new lover. The one that we saw at the showroom is the one that he allows me to drive. He drives the brand new BMW. It's far cooler than my dad's old pickup truck, and it's a lot cooler than driving it around empty lots after school. Logan responds, I have natural talent. Popped up, damn bro, your mom's employer, that's crazy. Your dad absolutely has no idea what's going on, no way. If she were to dance nude in front of him, his mother claims that he wouldn't notice since he is too preoccupied with his cherished building projects. Me with Sparkler Sebastian takes me lunch every Wednesday and Friday, and he got us all dressed up. I have courtside Lakers tickets for the next weekend, and my father is under the impression that I am attending SAT prep while Kevin Allan's jaw is clenched. He was twitching as he read through weeks of exchanges, and the betrayal of his kid and wife was unfolding in casual texts as if it were no big deal. It was nothing more than adolescent chatter that he was demolishing his life. Sebastian is going to teach me how to golf the following weekend. Another message. According to what I've read, it's essential for professional networking, and my father is always being honest. Your calluses and whereabouts reflect your tale, such as the concluding message in the Boomer Advice Report. Thread caused Allan to slump heavily onto one of the kitchen chairs that he had constructed himself. To tell you the truth, I like Sebastian more as a father than I like my own. Current one, he really pays attention when I speak about college dads simply giving lectures on how to work your way up and make yourself a living. A number of things on your own, such as, welcome to 2024. Elderly guy Sebastian recommends networking and relationships are more important than hard labor, and the sound of the garage door opening shocked Allan May, who was not at home for the opportunity. As his mind was racing, he immediately replaced the phone in the exact same condition that he had discovered it. When the door to the kitchen opened, his wife walked in wearing luxury purses that were slung over her shoulder. "Oh, Allan, you're home early," she said. The grin on May's face was a little hesitant as she wore a tailored blazer and skirt that most likely cost more than a week's worth of his salary. "Labor, I was under the impression that you had completed that significant job in Beverly Hills today before." The voice of Schedule Allan remained unwavering, reflecting none of the anguish that was occurring underneath. The group truly came together, and the emphasis was placed on the final word. Good guys who could be relied upon. May's finely manicured fingers fiddled with her vehicle keys, which was a wonderful touch despite the fact that it was subtle. "Honey, I just realized that I forgot to bring some documentation with me. The dealership has been going wild with end-of-quarter sales. They must be selling a lot of. There was a question that hovered in the air like smoke, and it was about the BMWs that Aiden mentioned. With his bulk filling the kitchen doorway, Allan rose slowly, giving the impression that he is quite the color has been drained from May's face during the last several days. But you are not an adolescent in this world. Automobiles, she clenched her purse more tightly. I need to go back to Sebastian, Mr. Martinez. I need to get back to him. Sebastian Allan, the person responsible for these contracts, tossed the name around like a sour pill you're new. I am the sales manager who is responsible for transporting my kid, teaching him golf, and purchasing Lakers. If May's facade was broken, how did you manage to get away with spying on me? Aiden left his phone, and it seems that our boys are pretty proud of him. Allan's chuckle offered no comedy. His new mentor, he moved closer to me, his voice beginning to lower, and asked me, May, does Sebastian know? May's voice rose. You're wasting the college money I earned on your little midlife crisis. And it's not like that at all. Shrilly, you are never available. You are constantly working while covered in concrete and mud, Sebastian. How to play father with another man's son. Allan's voice knows what it means to spend the money of another guy. How to play father with another man's kid. Maintained his equilibrium, but his eyes were burning brightly as I was buried in mud constructing our future. You are allowing a car salesperson to ruin it. May Chin hoisted it angrily, and Sebastian is a. Now that he is the manager of finances, he has ambitious aspirations, and he is bringing Aiden on college tours. The next month, using my money, Allan's interruption will rip every dollar apart like steel. You are spending money on your lover, and I have worked hard to acquire that money by laying tile on weekends and putting drywall at midnight. Allan, Aiden, you have no understanding of contemporary business, since you are complaining about my hours when you were constructing homes for other families instead. Needs opportunities and connections, which is exactly what Aiden need. Allan's remark sounded like a hammer that blows is to learn the difference between those who make things and men who sell them, and I think that is something that we are all going to discover today. Lesson May took a step back unexpectedly, unsure of what you meant. Allan simply. The look on his face never reached his eyes as he grinned. You should go back to work again, Sebastian's. As she waited, he moved away, clearly rejecting her. Oh, who knows? Perhaps he is hoping that winter is on its way, and the thread in his tone eventually ties together. Elegant blazer keeps you warm because. Registered May ran out of the garage, her heels clicking briskly on the pavement. Allan waited until her vehicle, which was registered, draw away before taking out his phone, his fingers no longer trembling as he contacted Phil Allen Smith, and he recalled that he had been thinking about time to execute and fill every account according to the contingency plan that we outlined the previous year. Terrell's office smelled like leather and old wood, and it was a dramatic contrast to the rest of the business. The accountant brought up computerized statements, which was a stark contrast to the dust and sawdust that Allan generally surrounded himself with. On his two monitors, as Allan sat across the mahogany desk, still wearing his construction boots and pants that had been used by construction workers, Phil said, turning one screen in the direction of Allan. Make the money trails crystal clear as day. For business meals at Mastro's Steakhouse 2 to 3 times a week, and accessing the joint accounts on a regular basis. During the week, he clicked through many purchases, averaging $200 each session. It was exactly 3 months ago that this Sebastian Martinez started working for Luxury Motors that the trend began. During the time that their sales manager Allan was leaning forward and analyzing the dates, Phil brought up another one of Aiden's bills. A statement from a private school lunch account reveals that expenditure has increased by a factor of 2, with high-end eateries charging for lunch on most days. He fixed his spectacles, and there are more performance tickets that were handed to the school. There are sports activities, golf club memberships, and other expenses that are all charged to your combined credit cards. However, the college fund is still unaffected. Then, making queries regarding early withdrawal alternatives lock it down, Allan directed the transfer of everything to the new account at the new location. I want everything to be finished before the bank shut today using the accounts that we put up, Phil agreed. The company accounts are safe, and she has never had access to such clever movie-keeping systems. His fingers are racing across his keyboard. Separated by Smith Construction, he halted and looked at Allan through his glasses, but he continued to work. You need to be aware that she attempted to access them the previous week by calling claiming to be your secretary and requesting information on your property. Allan's jaw clenched when she inquired about the Thompson project, which was about contracts and billing. I was particularly interested in learning about the payment plan for the $3 million that was involved. The contract. Allan rose and paced the office, indicating that she is not only sleeping with him at this point. Phil swiveled in his chair and said, "There's more I did some digging on because I'm planning something." Sebastian Martinez has established a pattern in which he has left 3 dealerships in a span of 5 years, each time. After he became connected with married customers, he received 2 accusations of harassment, both of which were resolved discreetly. His BMW was rented at the time. The name of the dealership is Allan, and he is running a show that is all show and no substance. You are familiar with Jane Hammond, the one who took out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. A divorce attorney who is sharp as they come took her client's husband for everything last year, even his yacht, and she did it at a low cost. Phil gave a gloomy grin and asked for her phone number. He had already done a bespoke garage for her. April. Allan halted at the entrance of the office and said, "Phil, I need one more thing. Pull every time. Each and every bank account over the last 20 years, each and every hour that I worked, and each and every dollars that I have earned. I want a paper trail that demonstrates precisely how we have constructed this life." Phil, who was already on it, presented a thumb drive while holding up a digital policeman. "Here. Your wife's spending. It is quite a difference to your deposit record 16-hour binge that you have been on over the previous several months. Weekend jobs, all of which are recorded, and no judge will fail to see the message." Allan slipped the disc into my pocket and sent everything to Jane and Phil. "I am grateful for having my space. Over the course of all these years, you have been one of the good ones. Allan, you have grown your company with honesty, paid your taxes, and you have been clean." The same thing happened with this Sebastian persona, Phil, who went back to his computer and looked at his credit reports. He was a fascinating guy who had leverage too. Because he is strolling to the dealership, his eyes wagered that the dealership is unaware of his gambling obligations. When driving his vehicle, Allan contacted the office of Jane Hammond, and her secretary recognized his name. At that very moment, the unique garage had already left a significant effect on Mr. Smith. "Miss, at 4 o'clock, Hammond will be there to greet you." The legal office was located on the highest level of a building that Allan's business had restored many years ago. Jane Hammond welcomed him with a hard handshake, and her designer chose to make a fashion choice rather than a show of authority. According to her, the files were sent over by her mother, Phil, who then led him to a conference room. While gazing out over the city, I went over everything, and I have to say, Mr. Smith, I was given a lot of stuff to do, and you may call me Allan. He is now sitting on a chair, scuffing the soft carpet. What should I do next? Jane scattered paperwork around the floor. Table that you have previously created, the intelligent location for protecting assets and recording them. In order to shield the company from an affair, she tapped a legal pad, but time is very important. The fact that your wife is spending money indicates that they are becoming more confident in their questions regarding business accounts that they may be developing. Somewhere more substantial, The college money is presently secure, as shown by your paperwork. Through recorded building labor, you have earned it. Her recent behavior suggests that she has financial commitments. Jane's recklessness prompted her to bring out a paper that was highlighted, but once she recognizes that the accounts are important, we need to respond quickly. "I want everything to be done correctly," remarked Allan, "and she will be locked up. I will purchase the book that I made. Everything that I own with these hands will not allow them to destroy it. Here is what we are going to accomplish." Jane gave an overview of the plan every point. As accurate as architectural drawings, the first accusation of desertion and adultery. She shook her head and said, "Those will be the ones. Your proof is excellent, and the messages from your son. Allan is severely punished in court, and the courts do not look well upon parental estrangement." When the conference came to a close, the attendees took in the information and asked probing questions concerning the custody of assets and the projected timescale. There was one more question that Jane had about the home that you claimed you constructed yourself, every nail, every board, and it took you 5 years to do it. Jane worked on it while she was working full-time, and she made a last note that's just right. The fact that she closed her folder is still further argument in our favor. Sweat equity has significance in court. Let us have everything in place before we move, Allan, and then go home and act like a regular person. Because Allan had time to reflect on the setting sun, he was able to make a decision while driving home. He stopped into a hardware store, and the shadows were all over the city, much like the sight from the kitchen in the morning, which seemed like a lifetime ago. 20 minutes later, he walked out of the shop with a brand new toolbox that was an identical copy of the one he had just purchased. It was the first thing that Aiden had learned about making things, and the old one would be going with him tonight, but its successor would be coming with him. Would remain waiting for a discreet word about legacies and choices, as well as some teachings. Despite the fact that it took some time to construct, the evening shadows grew longer across the driveway as Allan put vital stuff into his vehicle. Work truck. The duplicate toolbox was sitting in the garage, precisely in the same spot where the original had been sitting for the last 17 years. Family photographs that were taken before to May's treachery. His father's worn photographs had been carefully selected via a meticulous process. Carpentry journals. May's mother, Elizabeth Allan, who is May's dearest friend, answered the phone at the residence. She is not answering her mobile phone and is working late, he responded with a neutral tone of voice. "Oh," Elizabeth halted and suggested a new vehicle as the quarter came to a close at the showroom. It has been reported that management have been keeping everyone busy, and Sebastian has been credited with reinventing their sales technique. Allan's hold on the phone became more firm. Did she say the Lakers tickets to the game, or did she simply mention the business dinners? Elizabeth quickly paused, and her tone changed to one of comprehension. "Oh, Allan, could you just tell me?" "Elizabeth, she didn't ask her herself, and I'm sure she'll come up with a tale that's rather interesting. You were kind to me and a better mother-in-law than I deserved, and I found myself partially forgiving you. Where is Aiden in all of this? He is supposed to be learning some difficult lessons about the repercussions of his decisions." Allan checked his watch. "Need to go and take care of yourself, Elizabeth. You too, son, and keep in mind that not everyone. A significant number of us are on her side in this matter." After hanging up, Allan entered his home office computer for the very final time, and the secret. May's latest late-night routine, which consisted of getting home after 11 o'clock and checking the miles on her vehicle, was captured by a video feed from the garage. The odometer of the automobile, her attire being adjusted in the side mirror, and other subtle deceptions. His phone rang with a text message from Aiden's father. "Can I get $50 for it?" Record. Ed and dated. The squad had dinner together after practice, and Allan texted back, "Check your lunch account, B. Matthews." 3 dots flashed on the screen. "Insufficient funds must be a problem. It eventually said after it had gone and resurfaced. "It is not a mistake. I will ask Sebastian for money for lunch tomorrow, and I am certain that he will not object." After extending his generosity, Allan remained silent on the radio and then sent the discussion to Jane, adding it to his next call was to Aiden's private school, Westbrook Academy, which had a mountain of documents before him. Regarding Aiden's tuition, Mr. Kendricks Allan Smith, the administrator of the school. "I checked up the records, and sure, Mr. Smith, the payment for the next quarter is due the following day. This week, will you be using the same account?" "No, in fact, I'm phoning to let you know that I'm going to be using a different account." The decision to remove financial responsibility for Aiden's schooling is effective immediately. Allan maintained a professional demeanor throughout the conversation. "I have supplied paperwork demonstrating that the tuition arrangement was between myself and my wife, Westbrook, was never a signatory, and the quiet would cover the line. I realize that this is the case. The odd Mr. Smith Aiden is a senior who is almost completed, and his mother has been taking care of his father. There have been college visits lately, and I am certain that Mom has plans for his schooling in the future. You should also be aware of the recent Lakers tickets and golf club membership that were charged to the school's account." Allan stopped a moment. "I was not allowed to make those expenditures to the Parent Association account. Rather, the transactions were made using Mrs. Smith's credentials. The membership was authorized by a Mr. Martinez," while Kendricks wrote out loudly from his keyboard. "If you find the idea of older students receiving advantages from business connection to be fascinating, you may wish to carefully examine those transactions. I have constructed 3 expansions to Westbrook Academy with the assistance of your fraud department." Allan's voice became more resolute. "Mr. Kendricks never take into consideration the fact that the administrator cleared his throat, and we will conduct an investigation. You once mingle business with personal advantage. First, Mr. Smith, I am very sorry about this predicament. Aiden is a wonderful young man. Despite the fact that he has just changed his attitude for the better, it is really diplomatic of you. For the sake of argument, let's just pretend that his new expensive attire and lunch delivery have not gone ignored by the faculty. It has prompted some." After ending the call, Allan made one more round of the home, and then he departed the kitchen. This caused a social commotion. Documents for a divorce that were visible to everyone, along with printed screenshots of Aiden's messages and May's financial statements. The transactions, his wedding ring, was at the top of the stack as a simple gold band that never quite worked out. The security camera footage on his phone showed Aiden's soccer practice coming to a conclusion, which was a match for May's enhanced diamonds. Stayed at the dealership on her customary Wednesday rendezvous, which was precisely on schedule. Allan carried his father's old vehicle, tools, and strolled across the garage, stopped at his workstation, where a fading image was tacked to the corkboard. They looked at one another. Aiden, who was 10 years old at the time, proudly displayed his first hammer while standing next to a treehouse that Allan had only partially constructed. When he gently tucked it inside his wallet, the gap that was left behind stood out like a pail. His phone rang once more, verifying that the final transfers had been completed and that everything was finished. Allegation against the darker cork. Every single contract and payment that Allan had built up over the course of 25 years was now secured in new accounts. The next shopping binge that May would go on would run into a wall of inadequate cash. The final light would vanish as Allan hopped into the car. Via the glass of his vehicle, he examined the home, since he had constructed each and every window. Built by his hands in the gathering dark, it seemed to be much like any other opulent mansion in the area, but it was really very different. After hearing "your move," Allan mumbled, "Your move." He was aware of its bones, its foundation, and the power that was concealed behind its glossy surface. The motor of the truck silently moved away, leaving behind a home that was full of cleverly prepared traps and illusions that were broken in the process. The garage, where the new toolbox was already waiting like a quiet sentinel, was prepared to impart one more lesson. The knight swallowed his taillights while he was in the process of learning a lesson about the distinction between constructing a life and stealing one. For the time being, Allan drove in the direction of a tiny town in the north, where he had only lately been awarded a contract to construct a community center. Over the course of time, in order to construct something fresh behind him, his phone monitored a number of incoming calls from May Aiden, the Credit Card Association. After all, there were some silences that spoke, but none of them were responded, and they all fell into the deepening darkness like stones into a deep pit. May's grief started with her customary self-assurance as she drew into the Starbucks drive-thru designer. Her words were louder than the words themselves. The voice of the barista crackled over the speaker as she was being taken away by the appearance of her sunglasses perched on her neatly highlighted hair. "I would like to place an order for a sugar-free vanilla latte with almond milk that is served extra hot." Mrs. Smith may refuse to give up her light foam, which would cost $745. She used her manicured fingers to swipe her platinum card, just as she had done hundreds of times before the barista swiped it once, twice. The voice of May then grimaced and said, "I'm sorry, I am at showing decline, there's no way that's possible," conveyed that exact tone of affluent annoyance, "and you should try it 3 times more." Eventually, as the queue of vehicles behind her became more restless, May rummaged through her Gucci wallet in search of another card with each swipe. Provided the same result to CNAID, maybe indicating that there is a problem with your system, she added, her serenity beginning to crack just little. "Mrs. Smith, the other customers' cards are fine by the adolescent barista who uses the Shrew systems." Despite the fact that she was working and feeling humiliated, May retrieved her phone out of the drive-thru. A banking app that was already in possession displayed an error message that said, "Account access restricted. Please contact your financial institution." Her fingers shook as she phoned Allan's number, which went straight to voicemail. Once again, Mrs. Smith, her fingers was shaking as she dialed the number. It was the voice of the assistant that broke through the terror that Aiden's school is online one they claim it's. May switched calls, her stomach twisting, as Aiden's voice filled the car's Bluetooth speaker with his frightened voice. "My lunch account indicates that there are insufficient money, and the barrier wants to know what's going on." His voice broke with intense anxiety. "I'm sure it's simply a techniker at the school, honey, but you should calm down and chat about the tuition." The secretary stopped Mrs. Smith, asking her to kindly hold the demands of the European trip organizer. "It would be possible to oppose," another voice cut in Mrs. Smith, "if we were to talk with you before May. We are calling concerning the payment for Aiden's senior trip. The bank has reversed the last installment without providing any quick explanation. A different kind of payment. I am concerned that Aiden's slot will be forfeited." May's hands are firmly gripping the steering wheel, knuckles are white for listening. The voice of my husband's mother, Aiden, returned with a higher pitch, indicating that there was a mistake. "They are claiming that I am unable to attend school because I have not paid the tuition." According to what is occurring, May has swung her BMW into a. I'm about to do a U-turn, and the tires are making a screaming sound. "Don't worry, darling, I'll sort this out." May's heels clicked fast over the field during the 15-minute journey home, which took 8 minutes. She hurried inside while yelling Allan's name on the garage floor, but there was stillness in response. The wardrobe in the master bedroom halted her. Chilly Allan's side stood half empty with construction clothing and work boots gone his way. All of the drawers on the dresser were open and empty, and the safe in their closet was open and empty, with the exception of a stack of documents and what? May's hands trembled as she raised the first page of the divorce papers that had already been filed. The documents seemed to be printed screenshots from her phone. Below them were printed copies of Aiden's text messages to Kevin, each of which was highlighted in a bright yellow color. I would want to express my preference for Sebastian as a parent. I would like to know more about the BMW drives. In the process of searching for her phone, Sebastian picked up his phone and scattered the papers. May's legs give way as she stated, and she collapsed into the bed that she had shared with Allan for 20 years. The bed was the one that she had slept with Allan. Although she had sneaked out of her house to attend late-night inventory meetings with Sebastian, her phone rang, and this time it was Mrs. Bank Manager. "My name is Smith, and I am contacting you because I have seen some strange behavior on your accounts." Her own ears picked up on the fact that May's voice was far away. "What's left? That's exactly it, Mrs. The joint accounts have been closed, the investment portfolio has been liquidated, and Mr. Smith has been able to cash out his credit cards." May's attention was drawn to the fact that signatures and documents are required for every transaction. The flashing light on the garage security camera, which is the same camera that Allan had placed the previous month, claiming the neighborhood break-ins as the reason. The camera that had been recording her late night returns her meticulous odometer checks her outfit modifications in the mirror of the automobile. There was one more surprise waiting for Allan in the garage. The spot where his father's toolbox had been sitting for the last 17 years was now vacant. Aiden's was replaced with a fresh new copy that was spotless and hadn't been touched in any way. It was a quiet parody of all that had been damaged. It was the school's berayer and the trip planner who kept calling her, and her phone continued to light up. May gazed at her image in the bedroom mirror as she was confronted by the bank manager, each of whom demanded answers it was impossible for her to deliver. The moment she saw for the first time how her fancy clothing and flawless cosmetics seemed to be nothing more than a cheap costume in the garage, the surveillance camera was blinking constantly, documenting her unraveling piece of the puzzle, and she was racing to the window when she heard the sound of a vehicle in the driveway. But it was not Allan's truck that she saw. Instead, it was a sleek automobile. The BMW M4 drew up, and Sebastian came out with a worried expression on his otherwise gorgeous face. With tears streaming down her face, she turned away from the glass and saw that all of the cards at the dealership were declined for the lunch order. Smearing her pricey mascara in the garage, where the brand new tools shone brightly beneath the light. Fluorescent lighting as the camera filmed everything just as Allan had intended for the Westbrook M's administrative office to be. During the time that May and Sebastian were sitting in front of Headmaster Richards, the mahogany desk that separated them seemed like it was a source of tension in the office. On the bench of the judge, Mrs. Smith Richards adjusted the wire-rimmed spectacles that he wore. "Our connection with your family has always been something that Westbrook has placed a high priority on. Mr. Smith's construction firm has been. Despite the fact that he was helpful in the building of our campus, he handed over a paper that, because the tuition agreement is only signed by your spouse, legally speaking, we are unable to continue Aiden's enrollment without his signature. I have no doubt that we will be able to find a solution to this payment issue." Sebastian leaned forward and smiled. That had successfully completed a large number of sales of expensive automobiles. "I understand Allan's having some. Despite the fact that Aiden is experiencing emotional challenges, his education should not be affected." Richard's face hardened. "Mr. Martinez, when we were. I appreciate your concern. However, you do not have any legal standing in this situation due to the fact that he went to May and the parent. A number of improper charges for Lakers tickets and golf have been reported by the association. Memberships in clubs are the subject of major irregularities. Those individuals were networking opportunities." May voiced her concerns about Aiden's future on a weekly basis, speaking about Aiden's future. In addition, Richard said that his entrance to Stanford University is predicated on his successful completion of his senior year at Westbrook. Sebastian cleared his throat. "And it's possible that I could not have Richards cut the sentence if he hadn't left the sentence hanging without rapid payment." since the policy of the school makes it quite apparent only legal guardians are permitted to manage tuition. Concerns he stood indicating that the sessions were coming to a conclusion. Aiden may complete this week after that. During the month of November, we will arrange his transfer documents outside of the wind-whipped labyrinth. As they ran to Sebastian's BMW, she made a furious face and said, "This is insane!" Allan couldn't help but laugh. "Just demolish all that we have constructed," and Sebastian's chuckle was a sharp contrast to what we had spoken. "I have watched Allan construct the building, and you have just squandered the money that he has loosened his grip on. You said that the tutoring in May transformed into Hope Rising, and you listened to the Italian silk tie. You would be able to boost your bonus from the fourth quarter sale," and Sebastian adjusted his position. Uncomfortably, the dealership is looking into some inconsistencies in my accounts, and the attorney for my ex-wife is now looking into the matter. While he was looking over my finances for more support payments, he brushed his fingers over his neatly combed hair. The BMW's a demonstration from the dealer. I am unable to recognize. May's voice rose, is unable to assist the lady who put everything on the line for you, the son you pledged to mentor, and who sacrificed everything for you. You never promised that you loved me, and Aiden deserved more than a blue-collar father who was incapable of appreciating things. I never promised you that. What I mentioned about finishing the purchase was that his potential Sebastian's gorgeous features were what sealed the deal. Necessary, it's called sales, honey. You have to be aware that you've been selling Allan short for years. May's hand cracked across his face, leaving a scarlet mark on his otherwise tan complexion. You cretin, you need to confront the facts. Sebastian, your lover, was touching his face, and his eyes were cold. You desired the ideal luxury automobiles. Allan wanted to create something that was genuine, and he wanted to have lavish meals and VIP treatment. May's phone receives another text message from Aiden's mother. Logan phone, which is the superior investment. His father terminated the construction contract with Allan's firm, and everyone is talking about it. His parents are aware of everything related to the situation. As a result of the social fallout, Aiden's network of rich friends dissipated within a matter of hours. Parents who had employed Aiden went out of business. Allan's company for their residences suddenly recalled other responsibilities, and the country club, which they may have attended, became a possible destination. Whispers followed her through the hallways of her office once a day, and she was strangely booked whenever she contacted the dealership. A testimonial to the success of the corporation seemed like a glass prison, and every eye watched as Mrs. World sank under the weight of her neatly heeled rating world. Her assistant, Smith, was standing at the doorway, and the general manager is interested in seeing her. Although the discussion was short, there were issues over professional behavior and queries regarding unlicensed use of dealer demonstration vehicles. Refers to the moral clause of the vehicle manufacturer. We need your resignation by the end of the day, the general manager said, and Mrs. Smith and Mr. Martinez has agreed to move to our Phoenix facility, effective immediately, and has accepted the transfer. During the evening, Mother sat alone herself in her immaculate kitchen, surrounded by the life that Allan had constructed, a life that she had exchanged for borrowed. In addition to the hollow promises made by a vehicle salesperson, her phone flashed a notice from a banking software that said the account B. Matthews was $. In the year 2008, when the economic downturn had threatened everything, she recalled the year 74216. She had grumbled about the fact that Allan had chosen jobs that were below his skill level and forced him to work evenings and weekends in order to keep them afloat. His absence, the scent of drywall dust that was always there, and the fact that he was unaware that he was creating the foundation that supported her. Aiden was standing there at his exclusive school when the doorbell rang. Fashion designer lifestyle. There are some boys at school who are wearing uniforms with wrinkled eyes and red moms. His voice trembled. There are people who are saying things about you and Sebastian, and his customers are phoning their children and warning them to keep away from me." He stared at me. If we were younger and suddenly more vulnerable, we could gaze at her and wonder what is going to happen to us. When the son saw for the first time how she would allow him to barter his father's hard-earned knowledge for a borrowed BMW and empty ensures that the security camera in the garage was continuously filming this time in addition to another piece of evidence in Allan's storage facility. "Case pack your belongings. It was made in a thorough manner," she managed. "We need to determine how." Rose, my college admission, and anything more that I can't figure out what Aiden's voice is saying. In the distance, friends, everything has vanished, and a truck engine rumbled out for a moment. May's heart soared at that moment, but it turned out to be nothing more than a delivery vehicle, not Allan's familiar pickup truck sitting in the garage with the new toolbox. Undisturbed, a subtle reminder of the distinction between those who build things and men who just sold them the truth of the situation. May was left to deal with the repercussions of trade after Allan had organized a conclusion that was both closed and like a well-crafted trap. The 3 weeks that seemed like 3 years May were filled with substance for surface building for borrowing and genuine love for a lease and luxury. Stood in the entryway of their once immaculate house, which was now vacant, and watched as her collection of luxury handbags vanished into a closet. The proprietor of a consignment business received certifications of Chanel, Gucci, and Louis Vuitton simultaneously. I am only able to sell items that are genuine, still in excellent condition, and offered for a fraction of their original price. In light of the fact that the market is now oversaturated with luxury products, the proprietor of the consignment shop wrote a check. Aiden walked down while he walked up the stairs wearing his regular clothing rather than his Westbrook uniform. His first day of school at Franklin Public High School was drawing near. In the present moment, the tickets to the Lakers game and the BMW drives felt like a far-off fantasy. When Logan's father phoned, he mumbled something while sagging against the wall and claimed that he was leaving. The Thompson Development Project referred to Dad as the most ethical contractor in the industry immediately before the project was completed. While I was on the phone with him, May folded the consignment check, which was just barely enough to cover 1 month's worth of mortgage payments. Anything out of the ordinary like what Mom said. Aiden's voice trembled with resentment. Sebastian has left. Stanford University canceled my early enrollment once they discovered that I would not be able to complete my studies at Westbrook. He booted the ball. Allan had put the baseboard many years ago, but everything has been destroyed because you couldn't keep your hands off of your boss, and he wasn't even there. My employer may have lost her temper, but she quickly regained her composure. "I've engaged a private investigator. There is no way that a parent could just go." He did not vanish. Aiden stopped him, and he went. Because of us, he took out his phone and showed her a screenshot of a website belonging to a contractor. The screen that Kevin provided me revealed a community center that was in the process of being constructed 2 hours to the north in the backdrop of one of the images. I am going to locate Allan, who is driving his trademark red pickup truck, which is just visible in this shot. Aiden grabbed his jacket as he approached the drive north, which seemed like May's final days were infinite. Credit card, an emergency card with a low limit, issued in her maiden name, barely covered the cost of the petrol they passed places where they were acquainted. At the community center Rose at the time, Allan had constructed residences, each of which was a demonstration of his reputation for producing high-quality work. On the outskirts of a little town, its skeleton made of concrete and steel stretching into the bleak skies of November, as workmen wearing hard helmets transported across the site with a specific purpose, and their commanding activities from a position next to Allan stood in front of the cement mixer, and May noted that his shoulders seemed to have lost weight. His posture became more tight, and the wedding band that had been on his left hand was no longer there. He nodded to his staff to explain the situation. There was something about the foundation that caused poor Aiden to jump out of the vehicle before May could stop him. Allan's head shifted in his direction. Slightly he had heard, but his hands never stopped working spreading cement with experienced precision. Aiden proceeded to approach His voice was cracking against the safety barrier. "Dad, please forgive me for messing up. I didn't mean them." Objects, the rhythm of the cement mixer filled the quiet. Other workers looked between father and son, then busied themselves with their job respectively. At a different location, Allan proceeded to smooth the wet concrete with each stroke, maintaining a methodical approach. "I am aware that," Aiden continued, keeping a firm grasp on the barrier, "regarding all you've done for us throughout the recession jobs, the more hours of tuition savings at Stanford." His voice captured Sebastian's departure away from him. "You are absolutely right when you say that folks who construct things are different from individuals who sell them." Allan's "I moved to Phoenix when things became difficult." After keeping his hands steady for a few while, he said, his voice spreading over the site in a humorous manner. "Despite the fact that you didn't intend to, you nevertheless led him to play the role of dad, while I put in extra effort for your future. Allan may st ahead, we can." He turned and cement dust covering his work clothing, "just as you repaired it. Fix this fix," he turned in. "Whether it was our marriage to your guy from the dealership or the way you changed Aiden's character by using borrowed automobiles and courtside seats," his chuckle lacked any genuine warmth. "Certain items are not able to be mended, and it is possible that they may need to be rebuilt from the ground up." Allan sat down in his chair and begged with her to behave better. She pleaded with him to give us another opportunity. "You had 20 years of opportunities, 20 years of me building," and Trell's eyes were harsh. "Anything real while you were dreaming about anything borrowed?" He pointed to the community center that was rising behind him. "The beams, nails, and yards of concrete that make up this structure will continue to stand for a very long time." Aiden moved closer to the barrier. "And I'll pass it to you, Dad. That leased BMW is a piece of garbage. Allan's school should seek jobs and study the company from the bottom up, beginning with the bottom up." You added that you received a call from the engineering department at Stanford, and your voice changed to one that was intelligent and witty. "As much as the transcripts from the private school informed them about a child who was interested in practical experience, they are interested in it. Could be interested in learning anything about building from the ground up." He hesitated, "and their reaction is in your old room beneath the stairs." There was a moment of optimism that appeared on Aiden's face, but it quickly faded away since you are not arriving. "It is possible that it is dependent on what you are doing, but back. No." Allan took up his trell again. From this point on, he went back to his business and made meticulous selections. His son borrowed goods, and they were eventually seized. He constructed things last. As Allan continued working on the cement mixer, May saw her son's shoulders fall. The rhythm of the cement mixer drowned out any reaction that was occurring around them. In addition, the community center continued to raise each beam and board, which served as a demonstration of the distinction between those who built a. The ride home was longer than the way out, and Aiden glanced at his hands softly while he did so. Life and borrowing one. Uncalloused hands that had never experienced actual work in the passenger seat. May's expensive watch caught the setting sun. Her hands had never known genuine labor. Allan's words lingered between them. There were certain things that had changed, and its face reflected a future that had abruptly lost its fake sheen. Must be rebuilt from the ground up. The issue that needed to be answered was whether or not they would recognize themselves once the reconstruction started. There was a wind blowing in the winter, and the for sale signs were swaying as May supervised the movers as they packed away the remaining remains of her life. She had been cautioned by Allan, the real estate agent, that the home market was in a downward trend and that the mortgage would consume the majority of their equity. She had not anticipated Mrs. Smith, the moving foreman, to pay such a large quantity of money for chicken. May, who was obviously her financial manager, closed her eyes when she was approached with a clipboard and told that there was a problem with the payment. Her income, which had been a matter of pride in the past, was barely enough to pay essentials now that she had located a 2-bedroom apartment in a less. Although it was a great way from the attractive part of town, the beige walls and faded carpet were waiting for them. As Aiden stood at the doorway of his former room, which was now vacant, home Allan had built to mother Aiden. With the exception of Allan's brand new toolbox, which has not yet been used, Mr. Peterson referred to the. He is looking for a response about the job that the neighborhood repair business had given Aiden, which was an entry-level work starting at minimum pay oil, tire rotations, and other tasks that would have been beyond his capabilities 3 months ago are now below him. Because of the derailment of college plans and the loss of finances, it seemed that rescue would come in the form of a miracle. Her voice was hollow, and she replied, "We need the income." Aiden nodded, and he was already bringing up the storefronts. His manicured hands were starting to exhibit the first symptoms of wear in addition to the fact that his fancy attire had been replaced with more utilitarian wear. The change of actual labor was painful to see later that evening in their new apartment, where May was unpacking boxes as Aiden was waiting for her. It was possible to hear their neighbors complaining about outstanding bills, since the walls were so thin that they accommodated the constructed secondhand furniture. A chat that was too close to home. Sebastian contacted Aiden and stated all of a sudden. May's hands were still on a crate of supplies, while she tightened a bolt on a table that was wobbling from Phoenix products from the kitchen and inquired as to whether or not we need financial assistance. Aiden's chuckle was devoid of any humor, as he said, "Felt awful about everything," and then said that his ex-wife's attorney had discovered this information and that he is now facing a more significant divorce. "You were asked to testify that nothing occurred until after his separation, and the settlement wanted to know whether you would." This cretin May slouched against the counter after he had failed to deliver on what he said. According to what Mom said, Aiden's voice became more certain about the fact that he will replace his father. In an effort to explain the distinction between earning something and borrowing, my father attempted to explain to me the significance of the BMW and Lakers tickets. May's phone was illuminated by a notice, and she called her bank's overtime deposit the finance firm. She recalled Allan's comments about the economic downturn that occurred in 2008, and the manager position that she had been so proud of suddenly seemed like a joke. How, during the time she was complaining, he had taken whatever job that was offered in order to keep them afloat. Despite the long hours he worked and the unclean clothing he wore to work, she finally recognized the peaceful dignity that he displayed in his decisions. Suddenly, Aiden jumped up and said, "Don't talk about Dad. You traded everything he had." When things became difficult, he grabbed his keys to a used Honda Civic, which was made for a person who rents fancy automobiles and moves when things go rough. A BMW that he purchased with his own money, not one that he borrowed, and I have training at the workshop. Following Aiden's departure in May, Peterson has indicated that he may transfer me to real repairs by the springtime if I am able to learn quickly enough. Their little flat contained furniture that was not only practical but also inexpensive. It was nothing compared to the unique items that Allan had constructed. The windows looked out into a parking lot rather than the well-kept grass that was normally maintained, and even the air had a strange sensation. Her phone buzzed once again, and she was feeling stuffy and restricted. She was missing the smell of wood and honest labor that had pervaded their previous house. She received yet another bill notice that the fashionable clothes that she had previously flaunted at charity events had been auctioned off piece by piece. The social circle that had been constructed around Allan's achievements and reputation had dissipated. It was even her career that seemed like it was in jeopardy as reports of dealership cutbacks began to circulate. The hasty departure of Sebastian in the kitchen in May led to the discovery of Aiden's first garage paycheck stub. The sum seemed to be little in compared to the allowance that they used to give him, but his scrawled figures demonstrated meticulous budgeting, which was a lesson that Allan had learned. The irony was not lost on her as she pushed Aiden towards Sebastian's glitzy lifestyle in spite of the fact that she had attempted to teach for years. They were of the opinion that Allan's focus on hard labor was no longer relevant, and now their kid was learning his father's principles the hard way at one will. Her thoughts were interrupted by a text message from the real estate agent, which said that the final documents were complete and the buyer was offering 15%. May texted back to her below asking for a recommendation to accept markets when they were not improving. Agreement, she opened her banking app, and after the mortgage settlement, she would have little more than enough money to cover her rent for 3 months. Despite the fact that her pay would cover the fundamentals, she was used to the lifestyle that Allan had established for her while she dreamt of something else. Something even more fascinating was that she was able to hear their neighbors once again through the thin walls. May's eyes suddenly rested on Allan's brand new toolbox as she heard a youngster weeping over switching schools and a mother vowing that things would be better. A subtle reminder of the difference between making something great and something other, since it is still sitting in Aiden's room without being touched. Aiden would return to the garage the next day to continue his pursuit of his aspirations. Value of honest labor. May would go back to the showroom and observe as other people sold the luxury that she had previously believed she deserved. And while she was living with the family, North Allan would continue to devote his hands to the construction of something that would endure the test of time. The winter wind shook their flat windows, and the cheaper glass caused them to shake. The implications of ruining what he had already built. Improperly installed. May recalled how Allan had updated their home's windows personally, underlining the significance of the change. The need of correct sealing and materials was yet another lesson that she disregarded as uninteresting, but she is now seeing the difference between his outward look and his inner self. Aiden had undergone a transformation that could not have been achieved with a private school education. He was able to have his hands, which had been soft from the luxury of privilege, now bear the traces of honest job. As he pushed his old Honda onto the construction site where his father's business was located, the sun was just beginning to rise. Aiden watched the newest project take form as he was holding a brand new toolbox that he had acquired with 3 months' worth of garage extra money. As the crew arrived, each worker showed Allan true respect by nodding their head. This was a far cry from when Sebastian had demanded fake reverence at the dealership sites that were not available to guests. A foreman brought out his attention to the situation. Aiden Allan turned his head to look at the speaker, his face remaining unchanged as he recognized his kid, who had been through a lot over the last 6 months. In the same way, yet in a different way, he stood taller and free of the load of pretense. I'm here to work, and I've got your certificates. I'm not going to see Aiden, so I moved the toolbox. The voice of Allan sounded professional and distant, and Aiden delved into his pocket to fulfill OSHA regulations. Level 1 construction safety is achieved by the rear pocket creating papers that are nicely folded. Certification had been studying late into the night after his shifts at the garage, and he swallowed hard. When Peterson, my supervisor at the garage, inspected the paperwork, he drafted a letter of recommendation to Allan. His staff claimed that they were not looking at the records. Watching this demonstrates that you have gained strong diagnostic abilities and attention to detail. His eyes met Aiden Peterson's, who was not readily impressed, and he found that he had a strong work ethic. That as I was slowly working my way up from oil changes, Aiden began to shift his weight and began reading. The community college also provides night programs in construction management, and there is a ghost of a college that sells engineering texts. There was a smirk on Allan's lips, and he believed that you were too good for community college. Stanford was not your ideal school that you attended. In response to the name, I've got different, Mom's dream and Aiden's voice made a hardening sound. As of right now, Dream's desire to construct something genuine rather than steal the success of someone else, Allan examined his son, not the entitled adolescent who had derided the effort he had done throughout his life in books, but rather a young man who was starting to. The team had ceased pretending not to listen to their own tales of difficult lessons in order to comprehend the significance of learning from one's own experiences. Observed via the metamorphosis of Aiden's hands, Allan made a remark that showed me Aiden holding out his hands that were smeared with sea oil. As a result of a difficult transmission, sporting a fresh-cut working hands learning hands that are so different from the groomed. According to Aiden, the fingers that had formerly driven Sebastian's least expensive BMW were sold by his mother. It is important that foundations matter, Allan, since the one you created is being torn down by developers who are building low-cost condominiums. Regarding structures and living, I am aware that it is impossible to install luxurious finishing on shaky ground. A lesson that I learned from the garage was that Aiden had now positioned his toolbox next to a stack of timber. You can't hurry your skills, and you can't fake your experience. I repair every engine, and I address every issue. It's just like you never stop. In reference to the construction of knowledge from the ground up, Allan took a set of blueprints in his hand. We are in need of a materials runner that can do basic tasks such as retrieving goods and learning inventory at a rate that is $7 per hour lower than your current rate. He stopped for a moment over the garage work, but you will discover every component that goes into constructing. Allan gave him a hard helmet and said, "Safety first." Something stood up, and I asked him when I should begin. The recollection struck Aiden hard throughout the summer days, and Allan gently explained it to him. Similar to what I taught you at the treehouse. Weight-bearing joints, the need of having level foundations, and other teachings that he disregarded. Aiden, in response to Sebastian's bogus promises of shortcuts and networking strategies about that treehouse, he dug into his toolbox and pulled out an old picture. He discovered this among his mother's belongings. During the process of packing, it is important to remember that Allan took a picture of themselves when they were younger working together. Gripping his first hammer with pride behind them, the treehouse, which was only partially completed, stood like a promise that you donned those work boots back then. Allan stated that I had purchased you for weeks, even to bed, and your mother remarked that you have new ones today. During a brief interval, Aiden made a motion toward his steel-toed boots, which he had acquired for himself. Whilst the son remained mute, the photograph that stood between them bridged the gap of 6 months of absence. The building site was buzzing with activity, with concrete being poured, frameworks rising, and each worker contributing to the overall growth of the project. Anything that is more significant than themselves, Allan eventually said that you should continue to work on the garage task on weekends and complete what you started. Starting there is no way to escape out of a difficult situation, as Mom and Sebastian did, for example. Their decisions, and the results of their decisions. Allan put the photograph into the pocket of his shirt. We construct things in a different way, and when Aiden joined the team, he learned about the roles that each individual plays and gained an awareness of how individual efforts united in shared objective. During breaks, he saw Allan interacting with his employees without any pretense or disguise. Authority that was borrowed has simply acquired respect and shared pride in creation. At the end of the day, the first scratches appeared on Aiden's brand new toolbox, and his approved safety papers were used for the very first time on a building site. Curves and his comprehension of the concept of building bridges extended more than simply the construction of physical buildings. As the crew, you indicated that the classes at the community college are not inexpensive, so Allan packed up and interrupted them. While I have been saving Aiden's toolbox, it may take me a little longer, but I will earn it no matter what. Taking shortcuts this time, Allan nodded and then went inside his van, bringing out a I've been waiting to see whether you'd take the large envelope that contains your education money and never touched it. Constructing something that was worthy of investment, Aiden gazed at the envelope, recognizing its contents. Because weight was more important than money, I won't spend it this time because I am familiar with Allan's. The voice was filled with assurance because, this time around, you are constructing your very own foundation. It was when Aiden was driving home to his mother's modest apartment that he became aware of several bridges. He was wearing his new hard helmet on the passenger seat. Could not be purchased or borrowed. Rather, they had to be constructed honest days' labor at a time. After a year, the little establishment had been completely altered. Allan's construction company's reputation for doing high-quality work extended across the area as it expanded into the new region of northern town. Communities such as Roots, seeking solid ground, the little home that he had acquired and attempted to fix up at a price that was well below his means stood. While Allan was reviewing customer projects on this particular Sunday morning, the company had completed half of its renovations, which came in second place. During the course of his project proposals at his scarred kitchen table, Aiden exited from his home when a familiar Honda Civic parked into his gravel driveway. Despite the fact that it was the weekend, she was wearing business attire and wearing what seemed to be rolled blueprints while holding an envelope. I was elevated to the position of lead mechanic by Peterson, and Allan indicated that you would be at the garage as Aiden arrived via the entrance that was unlocked. Throughout the previous month, pride earned rather than borrowed tinted Aiden's voice trained my attention. Yesterday, I received something to show you, and it was an envelope that included a letter of acceptance from the engineering department at the university, not Stanford's groomed lawns and legacy admissions, but rather a school that prioritized technology and innovation. The combination of academic success and practical experience makes Aiden eligible for a full scholarship. Describe the process of distributing the designs between the garage and the job that your staff does. In addition to community college credits, they were able to view what they needed to see Allan analyze the technical drawings Aiden's first solo performance. Project for his construction management class. The specifics demonstrated a comprehension that was not derived from the textbook, but rather from practical experience. Allan inquired, acknowledging the precision in each measurement that she's taken. "Have you seen these, Mom?" A different now, Aiden pulled up a kitchen chair, the action comfortable. With acquired confidence, the apartment is tiny, the apartment is small. On the other hand, she is able to support herself financially and has even begun teaching lessons in finance at an adult education center, according to her. Fully comprehends what you meant when you reference constructing as opposed to borrowing, and Sebastian comes in last. As far as we know, he is selling old vehicles in Phoenix. The attorney for his ex-wife discovered proof of further affairs, and he lost his job. Aiden, who has a finance license, drew a load-bearing estimate on his plans. It's amusing how empty everything turned out. Now that he was offering glances, Allan nodded, recalling May's designer lifestyle, which was constructed on his effort, often the most. When it comes to lessons, Aiden dipped into his work bag and pulled out the pricey ones. These are the lessons that we don't believe we need to learn. As rearranging Mom's storage unit, I discovered this as I was removing a picture book that had been weathered. Do you remember this day? The snapshot that was taken shows Allan and little Aiden standing proudly in front of the finished treehouse before they had their first. The boy's hands were bandaged from rookie blunders, but his grin screamed of earned triumph. The project was a cooperative effort among the two of you. Allan remembered that you insisted on sanding each board by yourself, and that you refused to let me assist you when you got there. Aiden's chuckle included a newfound knowledge of the situation. Splinter stated that I had to earn my calluses. Although I wish I had recalled that lesson before anything else, Allan did not study his kid. No longer the entitled adolescent who was enticed by borrowed luxury, but rather a young man who had rebuilt himself from the ground up. The change that occurred over the course of the previous year was evident in more than just his grizzled hands and old work boots. He also received a new project. In the beginning, Allan spoke while taking out his own set of designs for the community center. The calculations for the expansion load seemed to be known to Aiden, who studied the drawings. Recognition dawning, these are based on my design from engineering class. Town council accepted the adjustments if they were to be implemented. Allan, if you want to see your first serious project take form, you should let the offer hang there. I have some vacation time stored up at the moment. Since the garage had been waiting for the appropriate project to utilize it, their conversation about the specifics of the development was interrupted by the short pause that occurred before Allan's father gave him. The phone was captured by a text message from May Aiden, which was located on Allan's phone. During the process of packing for winter storage, May's message stated that there was a photograph of Allan's first toolbox, which was the one he'd used. I used to educate Aiden that responsibility lies with two of you, and now I truly get what that is. Represents Aiden zeroed in on the weathered leather and steel that had fashioned his initial lessons, and she is not the same as she was before. Individuals change, and the person who picked Sebastian's stolen splendor over your established stability is an example of this. The issue that Allan posed was straightforward. Are they constructing something more superior out of the ruins that the early light pierced through? Using windows, Allan had managed to set up his own installation, which included an illuminated father and son surrounded by blueprints. The possibilities that were waiting for him outside his vehicle on Monday's work, its bed was laden with. There are several things that Allan expressed that are looking for his ever-present ingredients for honest work. However, you are responsible for building it yourself. Aiden grinned, recognizing the significance of the phrase time, and he added that there are certain things that are worth rebuilding together. They bowed with the effort. After spending the morning in a relaxed and comfortable focus, the community center planned to calculate measurements and verify angles. A guy contributing his knowledge to their common vision without taking any shortcuts or borrowing any prestige. As the shadows became longer, Aiden grabbed his designs and asked his mother about it. It was simply the calm joy of producing something real. About you, he added hastily, saying that she hoped she discovered what you were always aiming to create, and that she was not concerned with her own well-being. Looked about his little house at the modifications that were just halfway complete, which signified his new life that he had never lost. As soon as it caught sight of it, it was necessary to remove any unstable improvements to the Honda's engine. Aiden glanced over as he was getting ready to go through the windshield, and he saw his father return to the porch rather than the guy, whom had covertly provided financial support for a wealthy existence, but the builder who had imparted onto him the most important and long-lasting lesson of his life. The sunset illuminated the northern sky as father and son parted ways, each returning to their own homes during the time when things come from honest effort. When they made the decision to build atop their common destiny, the foundations they picked would rise like the community center, which was precisely calculated. There were certain gaps that could not be spanned, but one beam at a time, reinforced by knowledge that was won through sweat and time. By means of borrowed affluence or the least amount of prestige, but by means of sufficient honest labor and genuine materials, even the most profound foundations may be rebuilt more powerfully as a result of having experienced what it was like to fall back. After many years, the autumn light threw long shadows on the newly enlarged offices of Smith Construction, which had previously been devoid of shadows. Allan examined the property from his vantage point, which was a humble side office that had been transformed into a 3-story testament to his achievement. Wall decorations in the workplace that are not embellished with awards of honor, but rather with framed plans, each of which designated a significant milestone, and re-establishing his life. A sleek Tesla drove up. May strolled out of her fancy clothing and into the visitor's parking lot, grabbing his attention. She had swapped her designer clothes with office attire, where her manicure, which was once perfect but is now just functional and has been worn for 5 years. There were wrinkles around her eyes that could not be concealed by any fancy cream. She wasn't here to see Allan, and those bridges had been made a long time ago. Instead of being deemed unsalvageable, she was present for Aiden's project presentation. Their son, who is now the director of the engineering division at Smith Construction, has climbed by merit rather than via any other means. May took a seat at the back of the conference room, which was packed with investors and members of the town council, and attempted to manipulate the situation. Aiden's presentation, which outlined the most recent cheap development from the organization, was delivered with a calm assurance that commanded the audience. Residences constructed utilizing cutting-edge, environmentally friendly materials. There is no flash or borrowed prestige, simply solid designs completed. On the basis of established foundations, Aiden outlined the Taylor standard while indicating to. This implies that the forecasted statistics are not only for immediate profit, but also for generations to come. When his eyes momentarily met those of his mother, we were reminded of the consequences that come with prioritizing beauty over content in the front row. Sarah, his wife, beamingly recalled that they had first met in the garage, where he had begun the process of reforming his life. She had been a client with A. Their romance had evolved like one of Allan's projects, deliberately and honestly with one other, despite the persistent transmission difficulty. May continued to see Allan congratulate his son on their connection following the presentation, which provided a strong foundation. Had survived the storm and emerged much stronger as a result of having her personal relationship with Aiden put to the test in order to work with. Development weekly meals and her small department discussions that have carefully avoided addressing Sebastian for the last 5 years. Years had taught May valuable lessons about the cost of decisions, and her employment as finance manager had been terminated when the dealership went out of business. The adult education institution where she is now working has finally caught up with the books, which has resulted in Sebastian's mismanagement being downgraded. She was paid less, but she was provided something that she had never discovered in luxury via local opportunities. She was taught fundamental financial literacy. The correctness of Allan's early judgment was confirmed with each update that she received and the occasional news about Sebastian that she received from business circles. Regarding the distinction between guys who built things and individuals who sold them, the former BMW sales manager is now employed at a failing used car factory. When investigations uncovered a pattern of misconduct, his license to offer securities was permanently suspended. The vehicle lot was located in Phoenix. Fraud, his ex-wife, had won everything in their second divorce. His habit of affairs offering abundant ammo, the fraud, his ex-wife, had managed to get everything. In May of last year, it was reported that he resided in a room that was leased and made payments on debts that would follow him for decades at the very least. Under the bright glare of the sun, the BMW and the borrowed prestige had gone like the morning fog. She was thinking about something when she was stopped by Aiden's voice. "Sarah and I wanted to ask you something," and we turned to see her son. Their expressions implying that they had some news. Sarah's hand was resting subconsciously on her tummy, and it is possible that she is pregnant. It was known that we are participating in March, and Sarah emphasized that her grin was genuine. While there are requirements that must be met for you to be involved, Aiden concluded his tone and held it. Merely the knowledge that has been achieved through hard work, no expensive baby stores, and no exclusive. There will be preschool apps in which our kid will learn values from the ground up, just as my father taught me ultimately. May nodded. Adopting these conditions as part of her continuous punishment, I would want to see a good foundation being created from the beginning of the whole process. Beginning this time across the room, Allan spoke over the technical specs with It was not via spectacular acquisitions or leveraged buyouts that his firm had expanded, but rather through the efforts of his project managers. The small property that he rebuilt was the source of his growth, which was based on the proved outcomes of each contract gained via shown excellence. Rather than demonstrating that he had never remarried, the changes that were made to the house were done with care. Real indicated that the house had become a home. When the gathering broke up, May found herself alone in the room, and she acknowledged that there were certain buildings that could not be protected. Via the window of the conference room, she saw Allan and Rhea as they made their way to the construction yard, where they were working hand in hand. As they spoke about the responsibilities for the day, boots kicked up dust, and a framed photograph that was hanging on the wall attracted her attention. The ancient treehouse with the young Aiden and Allan, who were standing proudly next to it, hung a recent addition, which was Aiden and Sarah, who were posing not long ago on their wedding day. As Aiden was looking for redemption for the first time, he was standing in front of a high-end venue, but at the community center that Allan had been constructing. The same center that was now hosting May's workshops on financial literacy, in which she educated people on the actual cost of several things. Her phone buzzed with a news alert about Sebastian, another fraud probe, another set of circumstances when she was selecting the look of substance. Accusations, his pattern had not altered. The only thing that had changed was the magnitude of his deceptions. Reduced the guy who had once sold his dreams of grandeur, and now could not even maintain the pretense of accomplishment in May's little flat. Waited across town, its rent eating her a considerable chunk of her teaching pay, and the complex wasn't in the finest condition. Area. Nonetheless, it was truthful, much like the life that she had reconstructed from the ruins of her decisions for the next generation of prestige. May's grandson would grow up to appreciate the distinction between knowledge that was earned and wisdom that was borrowed. Early lessons she would learn too late: that foundations are important, that things that last take time to develop, and that some things are more important than others. As she went to her reasonably used automobile, which was all she could buy on her new job, she realized that debts cannot be repaid with money. May had just passed the wall of finished projects in the lobby of Smith Constructions, where each picture represented something that Allan had constructed individually. The final photograph highlighted the disparity between his journey and that of Sebastian, with each building standing as a testament to the contrast. The most recent endeavor of the firm, which included breaking new ground in the picture, had 3 generations of tailors standing together with Allan. There were a few omissions in the shot, including calm strength Aiden, who had the knowledge he had gained, and Sarah, who carried their future potential, were also earned, and when she assessed papers from her finance class that evening, her flat seemed rather more cramped than it often does. In the case of students of literacy, each worksheet represented an individual who was attempting to construct security based on honest foundations. The only remnant of her past life was the broken clasp of a shoe, which she kept on her tiny desk. Sebastian had given her a fancy bracelet, which she treasured not as a treasure but more as a reminder of this. The local news published an article on the affordable housing project that Smith Construction was working on, and the writer applauded their dedication to. On the other hand, contemporary home constructions have placed an emphasis on luxury, exposing the disparity between quality and rapid profit. A quick interview with Aiden, whose self-assured competence was clear as the session concluded, was included in the portion that focused on structural integrity. He discussed the principles of construction. May saw that he wore the same kind of work boots as Allan, not for the sake of appearances but for the purpose of. Inside the context of the function, she caught a glimpse of Sarah touring, the sight of one hand resting. A last text message was found on her phone, which was hidden on her developing tummy. The next generation was already learning how to construct things correctly. In response to a message that Sebastian wrote some months ago during his most recent dip, "Recall when we had everything," she never answered ultimately. As the darkness descended over her, she came to the realization that they had never had anything true, simply borrowed time and the smallest amount of luxury. May opened her teaching notes for tomorrow's class, which required her to construct financial foundations. The irony didn't occur to her until she read her notes. Escape her, she discovered the hard way that genuine prosperity did not come from financial resources that could be borrowed, but rather from things that were designed to endure. In a different part of the city, Allan and Aiden most likely stayed late at the office to plan the tasks that would be completed the following day with them. It is possible that Sarah waited at their humble but well-built home, paying the same attention to detail that had helped them rebuild their love. In Phoenix, Sebastian probably pursued another woman, and at home, he understood the significance of guys who made rather than consumed. Plan another quick cut, another stolen dream, never learning the lesson that had cost May everything to comprehend some of the things that she had to learn. Some foundations had to be earned rather than rented, and things had to be constructed rather than purchased. Additionally, there are some decisions that will forever be etched into the foundation of your life, teaching future generations the value of trading. Content for the presentation that would be shown the next morning would reveal to each of them just where their decisions had taken Allan constructing. It is possible that Aiden will educate others to avoid making the same errors that she did, and he will also learn from Sarah's expanding Sebastian's schemes. They opted to construct certain debts on foundations, or they neglected to create some debts at all, being accrued. Instead of being assessed in cash, interest is measured in knowledge and certain lessons that have been learnt. This distinction between constructing a life and borrowing one is as lasting as the monuments that Allan has constructed to honor the difference between the two. Please leave your opinions in the comment box, and thank you for your time if you have any. Is this the point at which our narrative draws to a close? I hope you appreciate the narrative, and if you would want to know more about this channel, please click on the video that is shown on the screen. I will see you there.